Guys, welcome to the show this week. Today my guest is Mark Emond, but I pronounce it right, or is Emond, right?
Emond, that's
Emond,
correct.
my apologies. Okay. Mark is a president and founder at the Demand Spring. And Mark, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, you're welcome, Gurmeet. It's great to be on with you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So tell us a little bit about what you guys do and what is all your agency is about.
So Demand Spring is a management consulting firm. We focus on B2B marketing. I prior to starting Demand Spring, I'd been in the technology industry in marketing roles for about 17 years. And I started Demand Spring with a view and a vision of helping B2B organizations, technology companies, financial services firms, and other B2B industries of optimizing their marketing strategy and their ability to drive the top line results of an organization, pipeline and revenue growth with a combination of marketing strategy, marketing content, and marketing technology, as well as optimizing the leadership and talent within an organization. So that's what we do. We've got a team of consultants across North America that work with some great clients to deliver optimization in their marketing strategy and results.
Yeah, I see a lot of big brand names that you guys have been working with. So just a step back. So if you just walk us through, you were at the, I see your LinkedIn profile. You were the Prinos, IBM. You just walk us through what you were doing before you got to Demand Spring.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I had been in the technology industry for a number of years. I was with Cognos, which was Canada's biggest software company, and we were bought by IBM. We were IBM's biggest acquisition at $5 billion for a long time until they bought Red Hat, and I stayed with IBM for about 4 years. We had done some amazing things at Cognos, especially in marketing, to really help grow the business, drive the top line, use some really advanced practices and technology, and really drive some really good alignment with sales. And so I had the view and the vision of doing the same for other organizations when I walked away from my everyday paycheck at IBM to an uncertain role. I had a supportive spouse and a vision and a desire to help organizations. And that was about 9 years ago. And here we are at this point. We've grown. I started it by myself. We're now about 20 individuals, as I mentioned, across North America, and working with a really great client base, and really fortunate to, I think, experience the success and growth and the joy of running one's own organization. I've enjoyed it a lot.
Were you solving a different problem, prior to, corporate world, Mark, with even IBM and Cognos? So are you solving a different problem? Is it the same kind of problem you're solving? What do you find the difference in the, problem you solve on a daily basis?
Yeah, I mean, pretty similar. I think the premise behind what we do is the way that B2B buyers buy today has changed dramatically in the last, 10, 15, 20 years, right? Sales used to be certainly the primary, if not the only channel that B2B buyers used to interact with and engage with throughout their buyer journey. And today they're a channel, but they're certainly not the channel. A lot of the B2B buyer journey happens before they get to sales. They're interacting with marketing content through digital channels through much of their buyer journey. B2B buyers are doing a lot of independent online research and evaluation. And really only about 17% of the buyer journey, according to Gartner now, is spent actively working with a vendor sales rep. The other 83% is spent independently. And a lot of that is with marketing content and channels. And so, that's the problem we address. Is you've got a lot of organizations that historically have had a heavy sales model and a sales lift, and now they're adapting to this new reality where the buyer, and certainly the pandemic has further accelerated this, is engaging much more today with marketing through digital channels than they ever have before in their buyer journey. And so the problem we solve, and this is what I was doing when I was in-house at IBM and Cognos as well, was really helping to drive transformation within marketing to put the right content in front of the right buyers for each stage of the buyer journey they go through, and deliver that at scale with a high degree of personalization and targeting using technology.
I see. What do you drive the balance between those two? Like, one is that solving a marketing problem or technical problem. Listen, this is what's going to move the business forward. And the second part is that education piece where you have to coach people, or it's a mindset that has to change in order to use the services. Do you see those two different style of communication? How do you find a balance, and where you see that more leads coming through?
It's a really good point, because in any project, and I'm sure in your business, Gurmeet, you would recognize this as well, that you've got technical challenges or progress that you're trying to drive in the organization, but then there's also the change management that has to happen with it, and that's always the most difficult part, right? Is having people adapt to new processes or practices. And so it's, that's part of our role as consultants, is to strike the balance between what needs to be done and the pace at which the organization can absorb that change, and leading them through the change management that goes along with it, and doing it in a way that you're bringing the organization along in a positive way, and you're getting the buy-in and taking into account the culture of an organization and their ability to absorb change, with driving the results and trying to drive strong results, while recognizing that not everyone can move as fast as necessarily the opportunity to move fast that's in front of them is.
That is definitely the biggest challenge. From business standpoint, it's change management is something. It's not, sometimes it's not change in the staff. Sometimes it's a change within for business leaders to look at different way. Start educating themselves, because they have to change their perspective if they want to take on a change. Where you see biggest struggle in that? Is a personal level? Is just organization level? Where you see the bigger obstacle? What are you trying to do in a business with the leadership, or just the organization itself?
Yeah, I think it's we tend to work with relatively large organizations. Most of our clients are in the US. They're mid kind of 300 $400 million organizations in annual revenue, up to a lot of Fortune 1000 organizations.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get up to these especially organizations $1 billion, $2 billion, 10 20 billion, some of our clients are even higher. The level of the matrixed nature of the organization, how the operating model works, the level of complexity in the operating model, the level of buy-in and commitment and socializing change that has to happen is tremendous. And so I think that's one of our biggest challenges, is just working with the organizations to bring them along. I think as consultants, I always view our role as we have to kind of push them a little further ahead of their comfort zone, realizing that we're probably going to end up within the comfort zone, but we want to, our role is to kind of lead and push and drive, but then recognizing that there's a pace that they are going to go at, that you've got to be cognizant of that pace. And you can't seek to boil the ocean in 90 days when, realistically it's going to take 18 months to get there. Right. So you've got to create a roadmap, and it's just about, I think, recognizing the stick handling, to use a good Canadian hockey term, that we need to do within an account to get there.
Is a certain industry you see, Mark, that a little bit more towards adapting changes, that they're easy to make a decision, and a certain industry is holding back? Do you see any difference in that? Or how about U.S. market versus the Canadian market? You see a lot of young entrepreneurs in the U.S. and compared to Canada. Do you see any difference between those two markets or industries, where some industries are just geared towards making the changes, no hesitation whatsoever? Hey, let's new way of doing things. Let's jump on it.
Yeah, I'd say so. By industry, certainly the technology industry is a real leader when it comes to change and driving forward on new practices. Right, I think that we're probably not shedding great light for too many of your listeners here, that the technology industries are always kind of leaders when it comes to driving change, driving growth, driving new practices. There tends to be less, you get and you get smaller organizations that are less mature, that can, don't have the years of processes built into their system that, take time to work through. So technology, the one industry that we've found has really started to accelerate their pace of change, which has been great, has been financial services. We found in the last couple of years, we deal with a lot of big asset managers, wealth managers, on both sides of the border, actually. And we found that their level of digital marketing transformation that they've driven has really started to accelerate in the last couple of years. it's those industries that tend to be, large, complex, heavily regulated, financial services, healthcare, education, that tend to be laggards because of the complexity in their organization and the regulation and compliance that they are governed under. But I think they've also, financial services especially, have recognized that their competitors are really starting to, and there's been a lot of, especially in the US, there's been a lot of startup kind of new age financial services companies, folks like Lemonade in insurance, for example, that have driven a lot of growth and are really aggressive. So they're trying to keep pace with those types of organizations. In terms of geography, Canada versus the US, the one thing I find is the US market has a real aggressive growth-oriented mindset that we don't typically find in Canada. It pains me to say that as a proud Canadian, but we, quite honestly, we find that for us, it's much easier to do business in the US because they've got an aggressive marketing-oriented, growth-oriented mindset. I kind of use the baseball analogy a lot when I describe the differences, that a US company typically swings for the fences, and they're going to hit a home run or they're going to strike out, but they are going to go to bat swinging for the fences. Whereas a Canadian company tends to hit for singles, and they're much more cautious and risk averse in general. Now, there's always exceptions to the rules, obviously, on both sides of the border. But generally, what I've observed in my 10 years of almost 10 years of running Demand Spring, and my 17 years prior to that, and working with companies around the world, is that Canadian companies, for better or worse, and I think to a large degree, there's a lot of upside in it. They are more cautious, they are less aggressive, and they don't have that philosophy of spending money to make money per se, like the US does. And so you get, I think, less volatility in the Canadian economy and the Canadian market as a result, but you don't necessarily get that breakthrough, aggressive, transformational growth that you see in some US markets.
Yeah, we find this, similar, what you just mentioned, that it's a little bit, the hesitation. There's always, investments always going to hold back, just prolong as long as you can, and then by the time you make a decision, definitely you buy a lot of time in. How about COVID? Does COVID put a little more scrutiny on companies who are taking longer to make a decision, or also in innovations? You see a lot of brands, they had to operationally, or whatever, they have to just out of no option innovate new ways of delivering services and products. And on top of that, they have to communicate whatever the pivot they were making on that product and services. Did you see any change in your space, marketing or communication side, that they had to communicate new way to people just with COVID?
Yeah, surprisingly, what we've seen is it's been a real growth catalyst in the work that we've done. We have seen technology companies, financial services companies, organizations in other industries, manufacturing, retail, double down on their digital marketing. I think they've realized that they need to, the pace of change in digital marketing and digital engagement with their prospects and their customers was not at the level it needed to be. And COVID has been a real forcing function for them to say, we've got to accelerate our digital marketing strategies. And so there's been real investment we've seen that has helped drive our best year ever. Surprisingly, we never would have thought that last March. And I think it's helped drive some needed transformation amongst our clients.
You see there's an adjustment after COVID, post-COVID, or you see the same pattern going forward in 2021? What are your thoughts on that?
I think there are some things that will permanently change when it comes to as a result of COVID, right? I think I think we have learned collectively that there are many things that we can do digitally and online that we used to think we needed to do face to face, right? So, and I'm not just talking about the services we offer or from a marketing perspective, right? Thinking, of things like all of the companies that have announced that they will no longer have a permanent physical presence or office building, right? Or those that, I'm sure will consider more of a hybrid model, right? Where people aren't commuting to work 5 days a week. They're commuting in, half the time, for example. The amount of business travel, I would think, will decrease significantly. When we look at our space, right? The amount of live events in marketing, being replaced by digital events, obviously during the pandemic. I would expect that live events won't disappear, but the amount, the level, the balance will probably be better between virtual and live. The amount of engagement that buyers, previously had with sales reps, I think, you've seen a decrease in that in favor of more digital engagement throughout the buyer journey. I think that will continue. So I think there's going to be some really positive changes for companies, for the environment, quite frankly, and for productivity that people will have realized coming out of this.
Yeah, you think you made us more productive or less productive? I get different views when I talk to different business leaders. Some think, made us less productive because there's no discipline around it. And other ones, they say, well, I'm not traveling, I'm more productive when I'm working from home. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, from what I have seen is, if you measure productivity as kind of that traditional sales growth, right? Kind of the GDP productivity. I think it's made us more productive, right? I've seen that. I've definitely seen that in our business. I've talked to many of our clients and others, even just friends, who've said, I used to have to travel once a week, once a month. I don't, and our revenue is up significantly over the past year, for example, right? And this is during a time where, obviously businesses are hurting and spending can be down in some, certainly some circles. So I think at a macro level, it's made us more productive. Now, unquestionably, we miss the level of face-to-face collaboration, right? I think there's a better balance to be struck between people going into the office 5 days a week and what we're experiencing now, which is we haven't been able to, as a team, our team, for example, is spread throughout Canada and throughout the US. We've got a lot of people in the New England area, and then we have some people in the Midwest, and we have people across in Toronto out to Vancouver. We usually get together every 6 months as a team. We haven't obviously done that in a year. We don't know when our next face-to-face meeting will be. We've been able to do a lot virtually, but you miss that connection, you miss the collaboration, you miss the opportunity to just sit down in front of a whiteboard and brainstorm with somebody. So I think generally, if you measure the major macro indicators of productivity, I would say there's been an increase, but at the same time, we've missed that human connection and collaboration that comes from a blend of virtual and face-to-face.
I think I agree with you. I think that we just gotta find a balance between those two. But what are your thoughts on a leadership standpoint? You manage, definitely you have a big team. You manage a lot of people. Management used to be put everybody in a room and we share our views, what we're trying to do, and easy to manage people, easy to bring everybody on the same page. But with the disconnected environment or decentralized environments, I hear from some leaders that managing people is required a different skill set. Either they have to learn different skill set, or it's a different way of managing people. It's not the same as you put everybody in the same room and we communicate throughout the day, and we talk to them and we bring everybody in the same page. It's a little bit different challenges that is creating from a leadership standpoint, how to manage people. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. We have always been mostly virtual as a company with our team spread around. We have a small office in Boston, a small office in Ottawa, but our people are spread around. So we're very used to being a virtual company. I think, I believe you can accomplish, 95% from a leadership perspective of what you typically accomplish virtually. I think in terms of being able to connect and on a professional and a personal level, have great business conversations. I think you can do a lot of what you need to do virtually. I do think you miss that ability to really connect on an individual level. I think face-to-face, nothing beats face-to-face, right? So be it, a professional challenge that you're working through with somebody, or even just leadership and, leading with compassion and empathy and having conversations with individuals who might be experiencing tough times at work or in their life, or need counseling around a given situation. Nothing beats the ability to get together face to face and do that, over a coffee, sitting together and being able to do that. So I think we certainly miss that, but at the same time, I overall, I think the benefit of, for example, in our case, we've always believed in hiring from anywhere and people working from anywhere. And while, there's a trade-off where if we had everybody headquartered in Ottawa or in Boston, we'd be able to have those in normal times, have those face-to-face conversations, but the talent pool that we'd be exposing ourselves to is much smaller. So now when we post a position, we could say, hey, we're going to hire this person in California, in Toronto, in North Carolina, in Boston, wherever we find the best talent, we're going to hire. And I think that's made our company much, much richer overall.
Your talent pools just got much bigger. You almost got international talent pool, right? It's ready to train, training becomes a little easier. So yeah, definitely, I totally agree with you that, hey, you're hiring a much bigger talent pool. Interesting. So
Exactly.
talk to us a little bit about the revenue marketing system. It's interesting. I really don't see that on a marketing agency website. Talking about the revenue and the growth of the business, but you guys supposed to be talking about that. So if you walk us through what is that about?
Yeah, so the revenue marketing system is a methodology we've created that we use when we work with our clients to say, as a marketer, you're tasked today from your CEO with not only driving the brand of your company, but also driving demand and driving pipeline and revenue. And in our experience, there are 5 things that you need to do well to do that. You've got to have a really good understanding of your buyers and the buyer journey they go through. What are they thinking, feeling, and doing in each stage of the buyer journey? They have to drive alignment between marketing and sales, and even within marketing, so no silos. They have to develop their talent and make sure they've got the right people on the bus in the right roles. They've got to drive great engagement strategies with their prospects. The right story, the right narrative, told through the right marketing channels, engaging people digitally. Then you've got to be able to scale it with technology and be able to analyze and measure it. So those 5 things together, understanding, alignment, developing talent, engaging your prospects, and automating it and analyzing it with technology are the 5 components of the revenue marketing system. So when we go into clients, we say, you can start anywhere here, but these are the 5 things that when we work with you, we're working with you on. We want to help you optimize those 5 things. And if you do those 5 things and improve in those 5 areas, you're going to give your marketing organization a much better opportunity to contribute in a meaningful way to the top line results of the organization.
Sounds like there's a lot of moving parts in those five pillars. How easy it is or difficult it is to get all of those right. From your experience on the market?
Yeah, it's not easy, in any organization, right? You're always on a journey in any organization to moving from where you are today to moving to a better state. And you're never at the finish line. There's always room for improvement. I think in those 5 areas, there absolutely is. The good thing is, in those 5 areas in the revenue marketing system, you can pick any, you can start anywhere, you can work on all 5 of them simultaneously. Improvement in any area will help you get better at creating a more strategic level of engagement with your prospects, with your customers, and contributing to the pipeline and revenue results that matter.
That's where we find our business definitely similar. Not the exact same, but a similar kind of approach where you have your process sorted out, you want to deliver. That's where people's commitment and the discipline and a structure around what you're trying to do becomes very critical. You can get a handle on that because you have a team of people. You can you guys know how critical that is to get a handle on these 3 elements on a client side. Do they gotta have a similar kind of discipline, similar structure, or similar kind of commitment to what are you trying to deliver for clients?
Sorry, I just want to make sure I understand the question, Gurmeet. Are the clients aligned to the revenue marketing system?
Exactly.
Yeah, they typically have functions within their organization that are responsible for the elements within the revenue marketing system. So, we will often work across multiple roles and functions within marketing. Ideally, we're working at the chief marketing officer level. We're a partner to the CMO, and then we're working with several of their leaders and the teams that work with them to drive success around any of those 5 areas. But yeah, you in working with especially these mid and large size organizations, there tend to be large teams with very distinct disciplines and roles. And one of the things that we strive to do is make sure they're not working in silos, that they're working together, their efforts are integrated, and that they're deriving value from the effort that one another is providing to the organization.
On the same note, on the communication definitely become one of the critical pieces during the marketing. Is it different communication style, Mark, now that we had it before COVID, or how about brand, or somebody just trying to achieve a goals, or somebody trying to build a brand? Is it different style of communication that goes into that marketing strategy? Especially with the COVID time, there's so many government messages out there, for health reasons and all that. How important is to get that message above all those messages? Does it create a challenge for you guys to deliver on the marketing strategies?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I'd say, and you can relate to this as a consumer, and same with all your listeners, right? When COVID first hit, I think the message from all companies was pretty similar, right? There was a level of empathy and compassion and a recognition of the situation. Mm-hmm. And then I think everyone got a little bit tired of every brand talking about and saying the same things around, difficult times and, faring the best through the situation. The one thing that I think when it comes to communication style that brands need to be concerned about right now is their buyers or their customers are they're at home. We're all at home. We're all, we've all got various pressures being at home, right? From kids at home and pets and siblings and COVID tests happening in the family and elder care, right? So I think as brands, you've got to recognize and respect that there's a lot of time pressure on people right now. And so you've got to be really efficient in your communication. You've got to be customer centric. You've got to speak their language and recognize the problems that they have, regardless of what you're selling. And you've got to deliver your communication in an efficient manner, recognizing that people don't have a lot of, even though we don't have a lot to do at this time, theoretically, we don't have a lot of places that we can go. We also don't have a lot of extra time that we're willing to devote to conversations with brands. So you've got to provide maximum value in a very economical, efficient manner.
So you got to be really focused on the message you're trying to deliver. You don't have that kind of attention span anymore because people are so many other things to worry about. Health is taking over everything. So before you can make.
That's well said.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit. I saw on your website, and you use the storytelling technique, but you also talking about story building. If you could walk us through what is the two, what is the difference in approach by storytelling and story building? I saw a blog on your site that you're talking about two for different elements.
Yeah. I think they're pretty sequential. So, a lot of, I think if, organizations who are able to stand out and really connect with people who believe what they believe, they've got to build a great narrative. They've got to build their story, right? If you think of organizations like an Apple or a Tesla, for example, they've built a great story. They know who they are. They know what their why is, to use a Simon Sinek term. And they've built a great story that identifies what their mission is and connects with people who share that mission, that set of values. So that's the building part of the story. And then it's the telling part of the story, right? You've identified the story. Now, how are you going to tell it? And how do you tell it consistently? How do you tell it with emotion, with rational proof points? And where do you tell it? And that's the storytelling component. So the two are sequential. They absolutely need to be done in a manner in which the telling of the story builds upon the core foundation of the story you've built that you want to tell, and make sure that you're consistently reinforcing the narrative as you tell that story through different channels to your buyers, to your customers in the market over time.
Has that changed with the pandemic, Mark? That health, everything around the health taken over, no matter what story you're trying to tell. Has that taken over that, story has to be related to more health than simply brand stories or communication stories? Is that impacted somehow?
I'd say it really shouldn't have to a large degree. That, at the heart of your story is who you are, right? As a company, what you believe in, what your mission is. And there might be degrees of or shades of color that you apply to it that might amplify certain elements because of COVID. But, hopefully for a lot of businesses, and I realize maybe I'm being naive here, and I know certainly some businesses have had to, drastically modify who they are and what they do as a result of COVID. But, I would hope for most businesses that the core of who they are and what they do hasn't dramatically changed within COVID. The story that they have, the narrative that they tell the market hasn't changed. Now, the execution of it perhaps, has. And again, I think the execution certainly did in the early days of COVID, less so, I think, now.
Interesting. What can business leaders do, preparing a story is not something you can do, in a very short time. It takes a long time to build all the communication, especially with the time they have a little bit on their hand before we go back to offices. Especially cleaning business, I know our market in Ontario, what business leaders, what they should be thinking about, going back to COVID. What are your thoughts on that? How could they prepare themselves when they're going to go back, and start working on some of those strategies that we just talked about?
Well, I would say your engagement strategies, your marketing strategies, your content strategies shouldn't take a break, right? It should be ongoing, right? You need content, and engaging your prospects and your customers is something that you should always be doing, right? It's how you deliver value to the market is, comes through many ways: your products, your services, but also the stories you tell, the ways that you educate your buyers, the ways you inspire your customers. Those should be ongoing elements that are part of your execution on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis. So I would just encourage that creating content that educates, that inspires, that engages is something that business leaders should be, asking of their marketing teams on an ongoing basis. That, the stories we tell and the execution of those stories should not take a break or a breather.
Some of those business leaders, they're trying to make early in the year, they plan for the whole year, they're going through the planning, or they're trying to come up with a strategy. With the time of, what we're going through right now, everybody's home. If they are not just fancy making a decision, what do you recommend? To hold back a little bit until we go back to offices, or you say, listen, go hard on the marketing so the message is out there by the time you guys are ready to get back in the business? Any thoughts on that?
I think it depends a little bit on the industry, right? And the state of the business, the health of the business, the health of the market, the health of spend. I would say in a business where you're not seeing, a major pullback in spending, I would say absolutely you should be marketing for sure. And even in an area where you are seeing a pullback, you can reduce your marketing spend, but there are lots of organic ways that you can still ensure that your brand is in the market, that it's got a presence in the market, that you continue to build your reputation, you continue to develop affinity with the people who believe what you believe and your customers. That should be an ongoing basis. Now, do you need to dial up, dial down your marketing spend based on your business results and what's happening in the market? Absolutely. In a situation where your financial results and the level of spend in the market, are not suffering tremendously, then, I think, you absolutely should be present in the market, in your marketing, spending dollars to ensure that you continue to build awareness, reputation, loyalty, affinity, and that you've got a brand presence and you're building your sales pipeline through your marketing efforts.
It's the only way to grow the business, right? So no matter what time you got to keep spending on these two things, sales and marketing, right?
Yeah, and what we've seen in this pandemic is, led by consumers who are doing more and more things online now, right? From grocery shopping to doctor's appointments. We are doing more and more of the things that we do in our lives, personal lives, and in our businesses, we're doing through digital channels, engaging with marketing, engaging with content developed by marketing. So, if anything, because of COVID, right, you should be looking at your marketing spend as being an increasing expense to drive a return on your investment in your business.
Mm-hmm. Do you see any, especially Toronto being a tech hub for a lot of new, tech companies or entrepreneurs? Do you see any technology advancements in this your area, your space, marketing and marketing side of things? You see new technology advancements coming out. I see a lot of new, especially new tech companies. Everybody's putting AI on their slide decks, just to get the funding, or they might be working on that. Do you see a lot of technology advancements coming in your space?
Absolutely, yeah. The marketing technology ecosystem has exploded in the last 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
There's a chart. There's an individual, Scott Brinker, who is an executive at HubSpot, who started the marketing technology conferences that are held twice a year, Boston and San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And his chart had, I think about 6 years ago, it had about 400, 500 marketing technology applications and platforms. And now it's got over 10,000, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
huge explosion. The Toronto area, the GTA, has been an area where there's been a lot of really great marketing technology companies, folks like Uberflip and Path
Yeah.
Factory,
Yeah.
Influidef, and down to the Kitchener-Waterloo area. Vidyard in the video marketing space are doing great work. They've developed some really great innovative marketing technology platforms that are being used by a lot of our big, large global clients to drive growth.
And where you see the opportunities after 2021, the rest of the year, do you see opportunities for you or some brands, some opportunities where you see that is going with this advancements in technology segment?
That's a good question. I mean, I think we obviously there's still a fair amount of volatility that's out there as a result of the pandemic and the economy. We've seemed to have weathered it economically. There's certainly a lot of businesses that, especially in the retail space and the restaurant space, that are hurting. But in the B2B space, we've seemed to have weathered it pretty well. There's a fair amount of growth happening, and I think what I said earlier, what we've seen from the pandemic is that the buyer has engaged more and more online than ever before, creating a greater imperative for brands to double down on their digital marketing efforts and driving a greater importance of marketing in organizations. And I see no reason why that trend wouldn't continue through 2021.
Do you see most brands are ready for for user experience, or if the buyer's online looking for information, you see the brands are ready to provide that information, or they have everything ready that when a buyer does go online, they have all the information packaged in a way that makes the buyer journey much easier? Where you see the state of that, how far the brands have to go?
I think brands have come a long way in the last 3 years. I think there's been a lot of growth in marketing practices that recognize that buyers on their website, for example, are at different stages. You've got some people who are kicking the tires, who haven't committed to change, all the way to customers who have been longtime customers and who are brand advocates, and everywhere in between. And I think more and more brands have started building website journeys that recognize different individuals are at different stages of the buyer journey, and they're serving up content that's relevant for different stages, and they're doing so in a way that is a much more guided user experience and has more ongoing continuity in the user experience. And they're not just using the website, but they're using many marketing channels, from social channels and paid social to paid search to display advertising to chatbots on their website and personalization on their website, to emails, and emails in a really contextual, cadenced, ongoing, really targeted way. So there's a lot of progress that's been made, and I think there's still a lot of progress. I think there is an ongoing and constant state of improvement that marketers are undergoing. But I think there's been a lot of improvement, a lot of optimization in the last 3 years. I'm really excited to see how our discipline has grown over, especially the last 10 years in B2B, and the greater importance that marketing has played in most organizations. It used to be and especially in B2B, when I started, the joke was that marketing's job was to keep the food warm and the beer cold.
Yeah.
And I think today marketing is earning a seat at the C-suite table. We've become a much more strategic function within most organizations, much more central to the buying process. And as a result, I think we're aligning much better as well at the same time with the metrics that the CEO cares about: revenue, sales pipeline, earnings, valuation, rather than just brand values that can be hard to measure and hard to justify marketing spend behind only.
And from my personal experience, I can speak of that. Going through this buyer's journey, and it takes a lot more thought process, and a lot more hard work to come up with all that stuff than simply just building something, what we did, a few years back, right? So it definitely a lot more, labor intensive on you. Interesting. What's for 2021 for demand stream? Where are you guys heading? Any some special projects you guys are working on, and where you guys focus on?
Yeah, we've experienced a lot of growth in our business, and so our team has been growing, which has been great. We've added great new resources and lots of fresh insights, fresh thinking. And we continue to double down on the areas that we do really well, providing great strategic advisory to organizations on how to guide their marketing strategies, helping to build the content that drives engagement, the technology platforms that enables them to scale, and the leadership and talent practices that enable them to get the most out of their teams and drive alignment with their partners over in sales. And so those are the areas that we continue to focus on, and we continue to try and do the best we can every day across our team with our client base.
How big is your efforts, Mark, from your side, working with a business leader and trying to figure out, what message they need to get, what story they need to build? Do you spend a lot of time on that? Your team does it? How big is that for them to figure out, what they need to do in the market?
Yeah, I still personally get involved with certainly our bigger clients when it comes to delivery. I blend my time between leading the organization, helping to find new business, and delivery. But we've got a great team that does an amazing job across the various services we offer in our business, and great team of leaders, and then great team of consultants that work with our clients. So I'm fortunate to be able to come to work with such a great team every day.
Nice. So, business leader who are looking to build a strategy, or they just want to have a word with you, talk to you, where can they find you, Mark, and where can they
Sure.
get some more information from you?
Yeah, so Gurmeet, they can go to demandspring.com. Very simple. And if they want to reach out to me, they can email me at mark@demandspring.com or find me on LinkedIn.
So we send this video actually to all our database, and I will include your website and your LinkedIn profile right below the video as well. And if somebody wants to connect with you, I will highly recommend that. If you're working on a brand, you definitely got to talk to your team and figure out what they're trying to do. I think that you hit right on. I don't normally see a lot of organizations that looking at the revenue side of things. That aligning marketing with the revenue. I think that's if the business leader can get a handle on that, and the way you guys have the revenue system built up to measure all those things. I mean, that's a great work you can do.
That's great.
Good stuff.
That's great.
Thank you so much for your time, Mark.
Thank you, Gurmeet. It was a pleasure speaking with you today.
Yeah, likewise. Have a good one. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.